It's a huge building, and it, originally they processed herring, and that's now gone away. And what the building's being used for now is we have the urchin hatchery, we have sea cucumbers are being processed here for the Asian market. There's a guy that's buying scallops back here, and then we have the people doing the sea salt. Yeah, he's buying scallops.
Oh, he's a scallop buyer.
Yeah. This here is Hank Stentz. He's the individual who actually started the urchin hatchery here in the mid-1990s. I came on board and started helping out in about the year 2000. And the idea...
Oh wow, look at this.
Yeah, this is our broodstock tank where we hold our adults, males and females, for our spawning. We'll be getting our adults from this tank, holding up one of our adults right here. Now we can't tell if that's a male or female, but when we do the spawning process, we have a special application where we can, get the males and females. And we'd like to show you about that right about now. We'll take this adult back into the back, and I'll do some demonstrations as to how we spawn the urchins. And we'll just start with this urchin here that Mick had in his hand, and this we can't, as I said, can't tell if it's a male or female initially, but we inject it in the soft mouth parts. This is the mouth, and we use a potassium chloride solution, about 10 mils, that we inject into the soft part around the mouth and into the gonad. And this
and where's the gonad?
The gonad is inside, and they look like tangerine sections. The echinoderms, the sea cucumbers, sea urchins, starfish, they're all in the same family, and they have everything's in multiples of 5. 5 are multiples. There's 5 gonads that are in here, and it would represent a tangerine section, both color-wise and about what they look like. That's the edible portion of the sea urchin, by the way. It's also the gamete where the male sperm or the female egg is. As I said, we can't really determine the sex just by looking at it, but after the injection, then you roll it around, and we might start with a dozen of these urchins, and we set them down on the countertop. We do this process in the back room, and then we will have our urchins here. Then what happens after about 10 minutes, if they are viable gametes and ready to fertilize or ready to spawn, then there's gonopores on the top here, 5 little pores that either the sperm comes out or the egg comes out. If this is a whitish solution, that'll be sperm. That's a male, and if it's yellowish as in the egg yolk consistency, that's the egg, that's a female. Each female this size can produce about 20 million eggs. So say if it's a male, then he gets special treatment. White on the top, he gets a little jelly jar like this. Each male will get a jelly jar. We put the urchin upside down on the jelly jar. The sperm drips down inside the jelly jar. That's collected, then it's diluted. 10 parts to 1 seawater. 10 seawater, 1 part sperm from all of the males. And then that's the male part. If it's a female, if that's the yellow egg yolk consistency on the top, they get a special treatment with a 20-pound fillet container. We add about 1 inch of sterile seawater in here, and then the females go into the container. The eggs roll out into the container, so it'll be like a yellow solution in here. Then that solution is run through a 68 micron sieve. This is a fine screen where the egg goes into, and then we wash it with sterile seawater, and it removes like a gel coat that's on the eggs, kind of a slimy solution. And then we return the mixture back into our container here. We add sterile seawater up to this point here. By the way, the females are taken out and put back into the tank. They are not harmed by this process, by the way. This is a repeatable process. It doesn't harm the urchin. This is the swimming phase of the sea urchin. This is approximately a 30-day phase, depending on temperature, of course. We try to keep it about 8 degrees centigrade, about 45. And so at that temperature, the larval stage for the sea urchin is roughly 30 days, give or take a day or two. So we feed them a microalgae. Mix brings up, we run 2 or 3 different species of microalgae that we feed the larval stage. Then they go through these changes of 4 legs, 2 legs, 4 legs, 6 legs stages where they develop, and then they eventually metamorphose into sea urchins. So this is basically the stage that'll take place in this room here in these blue tanks. By the way, the stocking density in these tanks varies. These 2 tanks are a little bit smaller than the large. This might have a stocking density of 1.2 million larvae per tank.
Once the larvae metamorphose into an actual sea urchin and the mouth develops, before they can feed on kelp or dulse, they will actually feed on what are known as benthic diatoms. And we all are familiar with benthic diatoms. They're found, it's the slippery stuff that you find on rocks. And they will graze on this material until they get large enough where they can be weaned onto macroalgae. So we've got some small urchins over here. These urchins were spawned last year, and as you can see, there are various sizes there, and these are feeding on dulse. We've recently done an experiment where we found that they actually prefer dulse over kelp. And our job right now is that we're developing techniques to collect these, because as you can see, they can be very, very small. So what we're doing right now is we're developing a technique with these bags, and we're actually collecting them into the bag. We changed this bag out yesterday, so there aren't any urchins in it now. But in a couple days we'll come back, and this will be filled with small urchins.
Oh, because they're feeding on.
They're feeding on
the dulse, or
yeah, and they can smell they can sense the dulse.
Yeah.
So they'll crawl to it. They'll crawl into the bag, start eating the dulse. We then empty the bags into these colanders.
Oh my gosh.
There's one on my finger to give you an idea of the size.
How old is that one?
What are they, 8, 9 months?
He's a younger one. He may actually only be 5 to 6 months old.
Unbelievable. So how long does it take between when they're first
from egg to adult?
Yeah.
Under optimum conditions, we figure anywhere from 2.5 years to 3 years. Out in the wild, in their natural environment, it will depend on the substrate and the food resources that they have, and it may take as long as 8 years. Sea urchins are a very long-lived animal.
What's their lifespan?
It's believed that these guys can live up to 45 years. There are other species which they believe can live up to 150 years. Very slow-growing animals, which is why they can easily be over-harvested and have been in certain parts of the state.